Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a special post-game edition of Giants Collective as we have finally, and The Rock means finally, come to the end of this fucking atrocious 2025 New York Giants season. Today I'm joined by Adriano, who's next to me, Anthony, who's on the far left, I guess right if you're looking at the screen. He's on my left. Unfortunately, our buddy Chris, really under the weather. That's why I did the game by myself today, and he couldn't make it. And hey, if he wasn't sick and you weren't sick, all you got to do is watch this Giants team and then make anybody sick. We always appreciate you tuning in, and we appreciate all the support you've given us this season. Do us a favor, hit the thumbs up. It helps us out. Hit the subscribe button because we're going to have a lot to talk about in the off season, no question. You can check us out on TikTok and Instagram as well. You can find us wherever you get your podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon, and of course, Apple. If you listen to us on Apple, could leave a 5-star review. That also helps. And a big shout out to our sponsors, Sleeper and SeatGeek. SeatGeek sponsors this portion of Giants Collective. Check them out. They've been with us all year long. You can get 10% off your tickets at SeatGeek by entering the promo code Giants Collective 10. Again, there's no more football unless you're a playoff. Your team's in the playoffs. We don't know anything about that over here. But you get any kind of tickets you want. Baseball's coming up here soon. So if you're a Yankee fan or a Mets fan or whatever, and you're looking forward to the spring, some warm weather, and a team that might actually give you something back, use that promo code Giants Collective and get 10% off your tickets. I'm going to kind of change this around. I think these subjects were for Friday, which obviously you guys each had plans. Chris did not feel good Friday, so we decided to push it back to today. So we're going to kind of eschew what's over there because I want to get both of your opinions. Obviously, there's some fans that were very happy that the Giants beat the Cowboys, and then there were some that were absolutely irate that we went from picking first 2 weeks ago to now it looks like to be sixth. Adriana, give us your opinion. Obviously, you're seething, I can tell. Have at it, my lady. Go ahead.
I first want to say this. I know that players don't tank. I did not expect the players to go out there and play bad on purpose, okay? What I did expect is a bad football performance because for 13 weeks, that is what we have seen. We have seen a bad football team take the field week in and week out. And I don't want to hear that because they beat the Raiders last week that we should be optimistic and that this is a good football team. Because the Raiders not only benched Max Crosby and moved players to IR who were not actually injured in the game, unlike Andrew Thomas, they're an atrocious football team, like embarrassingly bad, like the Giants were last year. And the Giants are not good this year, but at least they're better than what they were last year, which is not saying much.
No.
But the thing that is so frustrating to me is the Giants, for the last 3 years specifically, have had from September, October, and November. They had 12 weeks and 3 months to play good football. When it is the end of December and early January, I don't give a shit if you go out there and beat the Raiders and beat the Cowboys. That does not make you a good football team. Beating teams in week 17 and week 18 with these culture wins has not done anything for us. So please, I don't want to see comments of like, oh, the culture wins. Well, it translated into next year. Did it? Did it? Because after we went to the fucking playoffs for the first time in 7 years, do you know what happened in week 1 of 2023? We got embarrassed by the Cowboys 40-0 at home. But don't worry, we won at the end of the season that year after we had a miraculous 6 wins and it transferred over into the next week. Oh, did it? Did it transfer into 2024 when Minnesota came into our house and then embarrassed us again in another week 1, 28-6? And by the way, I sat through every minute of those fucking games, so I got to watch them. I was there. And then guess what? Last year, they beat the Colts in week 17 for a meaningless culture win. And then guess what? In week 1, they went into the Commanders, I was there. I went to Washington, D.C. to watch this fucking game, and they lost again. And then they had an opportunity in week 2 to beat the Cowboys, and they lost. And then they lost against the Chiefs, and they won 1 game in September, and they won 1 game in October, and 0 games in November, and 1 game in December. So I don't want to hear shit about the fucking culture wins, because the only thing they've done is gotten people fired. So it doesn't mean anything. This win, maybe, like I said this last week, maybe it makes Jackson Dart feel good. I'm happy for Jackson Dart. I'm happy for Bobby Okereke, who's got back-to-back weeks of interceptions. That's great. I'm glad that the players played well. They should play well, but I want them to play well when it matters in September, October, and November, not the last 2 weeks of the season, because it doesn't matter. And it also doesn't matter because a lot of the players on this fucking team are not going to be here next year, but don't worry, Joe Schoen's going to be here and he's going to fix it after he doesn't re-sign Cordell Flott, Jermaine Illuminor, Wan'Dale Robinson, Dane Belton, and the list goes on. I am so angry.
That made me so proud. That I enjoy a good rant as much as anybody. You've heard of no shave November. The Giants believe in no win November. That is what we believe in here. And so, Anthony, I kind of got to get Adriana's opinion on this before we went live. I'm seeing it for the first time. So how do you feel about what transpired today and over the last 2 weeks?
Everybody's got a little bad dog in them somewhere. I think we just saw it from Adriana.
We like that.
I hate to rein it in, but I don't think I got that in me for this one. I'm not as frustrated because, listen, it is frustrating. I would have liked to see the Giants lose. I would love for them to be picking top 2, but this win doesn't sting nearly as bad as it did a couple years ago when they placed themselves outside of the realm of a Drake May and Jaden Daniels. Why? The Giants have a franchise quarterback, in my opinion. So I can walk away from the season, obviously miserable with the way it went, but I could say, hey, you know what? We found the quarterback, and now we can build around him. They just got to get that part of it right. What's way more important, what's more at the forefront of my mind is, who are they bringing in for interviews this week? Who is shooting to the top of their head coach candidate list? Who are they leaning towards? Who is making this hiring? Those are the things that are really important to me. Honestly, this game, I thought it was going to go this way. I was prepared for this, so I don't have the kind of anger about it that I have had in the past. When they beat, the Patriots a couple of years ago. If you watch Fireside Giants, you would know how much I adore Drake May as a quarterback prospect coming out of UNC. I wanted him to be the New York Giants franchise quarterback. He's not, because they won meaningless games. But now they're winning meaningless games, and it's not as painful because I think they have their franchise quarterback. So that's just how I feel about it. And also, there is the spin on it where I get a lot of people have a lot of frustration with John Mara, myself included. But this was a pretty important win for John Mara. The players played this one for him. He's going through a lot. He's sick. We've heard that it's not looking too good. I'm happy that he got to see this final win before the season drew to a close and as we head into the offseason and an uncertain future, not just for the Giants, but for John Mara. So I'm a little bit happy that he got to see that win. I know a lot of people probably don't share that sentiment, but sometimes things are a little bit bigger than football. So I'm happy for John Mara that he got to see that win. But nevertheless, as I've said, this is frustrating, but this was expected. The Giants going on a winning streak at the end of the year. There is no powerhouse in the NFL like the Giants when they're already eliminated from playoff contention. So you had to know they were going to win these games. But again, frustrating. However, I'm okay because we have our franchise quarterback.
I go through mixed emotions when it comes to this. And, the fan base getting at one another. And I said this in my post-game video. The fan base being at each other's throat has nothing to do with wanting to win or wanting to tank or culture wins or draft position. It's because everybody's sick and tired of fucking losing. I mean, we have been a shit organization for the better part of 13 years, one of the most embarrassing organizations over the last 10. Us and the Jets are the only teams with 100 losses over that time frame. We have been a laughing stock, a speed bump, an afterthought, a punchline. And no matter what you root for with the Giants, you are sick and tired of losing here. And it's frustrating at all aspects when you love a team the way all of us do, because if we didn't love the team, regardless of what you wanted to happen today, you wouldn't have any emotion towards it at all. It's what happens in any relationship where you love something. You're going to be mad. You're going to be sad. You're going to be happy. Unfortunately, the Giants do nothing but disappoint us a lot of times. I would have rather them lost myself because I just feel like draft capital is more important. However, I look at it this way. If we would have not won that game in Indianapolis, or against Indianapolis, and now, John, I agree with you. That definitely does not carry over because after 15 games, you have the same fucking record. So I don't want to hear shit about culture wins. They don't translate. You're going to have a whole new coaching staff. You're going to have a bunch of freaking different players. That means nothing. Maybe for Jackson Dart it does. However, I look at it this way. If we lost, we have Cameron Ward. We won, so we have Dart and Abdul Carter. That worked out for us. If we beat Washington a few years ago, we ended up with Chase Young. Instead, we ended up with Andrew Thomas. That's benefited us. The year Anthony talks about, yes, that sucks. We could have had Drake May, but would Drake May be the same quarterback here under this coaching staff as he is under Mike Vrabel because he didn't look great his rookie year? Things are meant to happen for a reason. I can go back and forth to the draft pick. I'll still talk shit. The Dallas fans tell him we did beat Dak Prescott. Fuck you. He started. Can't say we haven't beat him in 10 years. We kicked the shit out of him. We beat the hell out of you. You guys quit. I'll do all the trash talking that I normally do. But to Anthony's point, I don't care about our draft pick. We are going to get one of the four guys that I think we should get in Downs, Tyson, Tate, or Reese. Because the first two guys are going to be quarterbacks. We're going to pick no worse than sixth. We should be able to get one of those guys. You're going to get a top six, at least a top six talent. Coaching. The coaching is the most fucking important thing this off season. The Giants competed with some of the best teams in football. They beat the fuck out of Denver for 50 minutes. Couldn't finish. They beat the shit out of Detroit. Couldn't finish. They beat the shit out of Chicago. Couldn't finish. They crushed the Eagles 34-17. They're the only team to put up 30 points in Philadelphia all year. Okay? We've had opportunities to win, but the poor coaching, the poor fundamentals, the poor situational football, that's coaching. The bad angles, the players being confused and no communication in the field is all coaching. There's talent on this team, or they would not have competed with those teams that I just mentioned. They have got to get this right. And if they do, we should see some improvement. If they don't, we're going to be having the same discussion a year from now, which is going to lead into my next thing. And Anthony, we'll start with you on Joe Schoen's future. I'm not a Joe Schoen hater. I actually like Joe Schoen. I'm in the minority with that. I'm the advocate that he needs to be fired. I do think he's done good things, but the results aren't there. We won 3 games last year. We won 4 games this year. I feel like he's done a better job, but we're not winning football games. However, this probably cements him as our GM into 2026. In my opinion, he needs to be extended. You cannot bring him in here with his contract running out in 2026, or you're not getting the best head coaching candidates. What is your opinion on this whole Joe Schoen situation?
My opinion of it is that he's a bad general manager that the New York Giants are only going to keep because they don't have the capacity to replace right now. That's it. He is a bad GM. You can't look at these last 2 games versus the worst team in football, the Raiders, and against the Cowboys team that rolled over and allowed the Giants to win at halftime. You can't look at those 2 games and justify keeping Joe Schoen on those 2 games. I don't really know what you justify keeping him on. I know that obviously the Giants have said the young nucleus of talent. I mean, let's be real. If you're looking at the defensive side of the ball, you've got some talent on the defensive line. But when you get to that second and third level, it's all question marks and red flags. There's draft misses like Banks, like Neal, like Hyatt, so many of these players that we've talked about at a ridiculous degree. There's been so many F-ups by Joe Schoen. However, the Giants are going to roll with him anyway, until, in my opinion, the head coach that they want tells them that they don't want him there. Then I think they might change something. We saw it last offseason with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Where are the Jaguars right now? Didn't they just clinch the number 1 seed today? Yeah, they did that because
I don't know. It depends on what I think Denver and New England do.
Okay. Well, they've definitely got the AFC South, and they have a chance of being a number 1 seed. Right. And regardless, that's because they hired Liam Cohen. And Liam Cohen got hired because he said, if you fire the GM, then I'll be your head coach. And as a result, the Jacksonville Jaguars have returned to prominence. So the New York Giants, in my opinion, I don't see how they go through this head coaching search without finding that Joe Schoen is an inhibitor in this process. And if he becomes one, I still think there is a chance that they move on from him and they hire a head coach who brings in his own general manager. So we'll see. Again, while he looks safe right now, let's give it a week. Let's give it 2 weeks. Is Kevin Stefanski the guy that, is reportedly on the top of the Giants list if he becomes available? Well, what if he steps in and says, yeah, you guys really want me? Well, I don't want to work with Joe Schoen. I think that the Giants would be willing to change their mind. And there's been reports and indications that would be the case. But if you're asking me how to justify the fact that he's going to remain the general manager, I can't do it. The Giants' record over the last 3 seasons is just putrid. This is a bad football team. This is a team that only wins games that don't matter. They don't win the games that do matter. This is a general manager that hired an awful coaching staff, and this whole team is feeling the repercussions of those decisions. This is a guy who everybody else has been held accountable except for him. I don't see any justifiable way that he should be the general manager next year. But nevertheless, he probably will be, unless a head coach steps in and changes that fact. So I will wait for the head coaching search. I will hope that the Giants get this one right. And I will hope that if they have a head coach who they believe could be the guy for them, they don't let Joe Schoen get in the way.
Gianna, what is your opinion on Joe Schoen in 2026 and beyond?
I agree with Anthony. I think the reality is that as the GM, you should be judged on your win-loss record. I think that that's a big part of it, that you assembled this team, right? And we all wanted Dave Gettleman gone, and he deserved to be fired because he was not a good GM. Him and Joe Schoen have virtually the same record. So I think that he doesn't deserve to be here. I don't think he's done enough. If you want to make the argument that maybe he's brought in more talent than Dave Gettleman has, maybe he has, but it did not translate to wins. He's also the reason why the coaching staff has been horrible. He brought them in. Joe Schoen had the option to sit down with Brian Dable and to sit down with John Mara and go through all of the reasons why they should have fired Shane Bowen after the season last year, and they didn't. If you're the GM, I think you should have the authority to override the head coach on that. And, I just think that there's a lot that could have been done differently, that should have been done differently. Overall, I think it stems from ownership. And I think the thing that worries me, though, is that even if Mara wasn't sick, I do think they still would have kept Shane for one more year because of the last 2 wins. And I think it's unfortunate that the Giants ownership puts so much weight on meaningless wins at the end of the season when it's not important in the grand scheme of things. We are not a competitive football team who is fighting for a division, who is close to being second in the division. We're not even close to fighting for the wild card. And, all of that stems from the ownership and then GM and everyone else. So I don't think Joe Schoen deserves to be extended based on what he's done. And I think it's a horrible idea to have him be interviewing and bringing in a coach who he might not be here for more than 1 year of that tenure. So I think that there's only 2 options for the Giants. You either extend Joe Schoen or you fire him. I don't think there's any in between. And I think, unfortunately, they're going to extend him, which I would never do if I was them. But I think that they're going to lean towards keeping him and extending him. And, I think they put a little too much trust in him, but is what it is. There's nothing that I can do about it. So,
yeah, I don't hate Joe Schoen the way a lot of other people do, but to me, like I said, the results speak for themselves. I mean, you've won 7 games in the last 2 years. 7-27 isn't getting it done. And, Anthony mentioned it. You brought these coaches back. You brought them back because you thought they were going to do something good. They hindered your players again. They didn't live up to expectations. A couple of them got fit. Not that I'm blaming the injuries on these guys, but they couldn't close out football games. They found ways to lose football games. You had to fire your head coach. You had to fire your defensive coordinator. You're going to let Kafka walk. He's not going to. You had to get rid of all these coaches that you said going into this season, these are the right guys for their job. And if he thought they were the right guys for their job, then what the hell gives anybody any confidence that he's going to go into the head coaching search going, this is the right guy for the. Do you really want to trust Joe Schoen's judgment on the coaching staff he's going to bring in, I mean, again, I don't dislike Joe Schoen, but to me, you fired everybody else. You're a lousy team. What is the reason for keeping him here? What has he done to say, yeah, I should be here? Look at what I did. I drafted Jackson Dart. I drafted Abdul Carter. Look at Wan'Dale Robinson. Look at Cordell Flott. Okay. Like you said, Anthony, look at Jalen Hyatt. Look at Deontay Banks. Look at Evan Neal. Look at those guys. What the fuck did they contribute to? Nothing. I mean, Deontay Banks looks like he can actually return kicks. Looks like we finally found a guy that can kick the ball to the uprights, but how many freaking things do we have to go through to get a damn kicker in here? Right? So Joe Schoen has done some good things, but he hasn't won. So what is the point of bringing him back? How can you sell a fan base on going, yes, we wholeheartedly believe in the guy that couldn't get the coaching staff right, that had to fire his whole coaching staff, that went 7-27 over the last 2 seasons. He's the guy that we think is going to bring us to the glory again that was the Giants 15 years ago. Nobody should have any confidence in Joe Schoen. Again, I don't hate Joe Schoen, but the situation for the Giants needs to be reset with a new GM and a GM that says, got my quarterback, I ain't going to worry about that. Let me take a shot at building around my quarterback. Let me get some real coaches in here. Let me work on this thing. I have a foundation. Now let me build around the foundation, because who's to say Joe Schoen knows how to do it, especially if he's a lame duck coach. Okay. Or, I'm sorry, a lame duck GM. If he's a lame duck GM, who's to say he's not going to start to go out there and extend himself going, God almighty, I'm desperate. We're going to sign a guy like Kenny Golladay. Remember that shit? Because Gettleman was going to lose his job and we spent $72 million on him and all this other crap. Joe Schoen is going to say, desperate. Now I'm desperate. Now I'm really desperate because my contract's up. They haven't extended me. And I know that I'm on my way out the door if I don't do something. And then if that happens, then your new GM is going to come into the same situation Joe Schoen came in. You got a fucking shitty team with a bad cap situation and guys that aren't performing. It's rinse, repeat. And it's been that way for the better part of a decade. So I think he's got to go. I don't want him back here. Again, not because I just hate the guy. I just don't think it's for the betterment of the Giants going forward. And his last 2 seasons speak for themselves, man. 7-27 ain't good enough in any freaking situation. So it's not even a good batting average. If you're 7 for 34, that's one at bat better than 200. That's fucking terrible, even in baseball. So when you're a football team and you're winning just over 20% of your games, what the fuck are we doing? So he got to go. That's just the way I look at it. As far as head coaches go, Adriana, do you have anybody at your 4? Obviously, we're going to hear a slew of names. You got anybody you like in particular?
I like Tomlin. I know we're kind of iffy on that. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of rumblings that based on whoever wins tonight, the Steelers versus Ravens, it's either going to be Harbaugh or Tomlin who gets fired. We'll have to wait and see about that. I do like Chris Shula. The biggest thing that I like about him is that he learned under Sean McVay. If I had an opportunity to get any head coach in the NFL, it would be McVay, Kyle Shanahan. Those are guys at the top of my list. Obviously, that is not realistic. But I love the idea of Shula, who to me is probably one of the next best things from the Sean McVay tree. And what I like about that too is I think that he would bring in great coordinators, which is something that we've talked about too. Obviously, we have seen some really bad coordinators under the Giants, and knowing you've got a rookie quarterback, if Shula comes in with the defensive background, I really want him to be able to bring in a good offensive coordinator who can help take Dart to the next level. So I think he's probably the top of my list. I do like Jeff Hafley. Obviously, there's all the rumblings from Boston College and he's from New Jersey and the whole thing, but he's done a great job, I think, with that Packers defense. And I don't think he would have as much talent on that defense, at least on the defensive line, as he would if he came here and if we keep Dexter Lawrence and have a good draft and free agency. Obviously, that's dependent on it. But I think that he's another guy that would be able to come in and bring in some good coordinators. I don't like McCarthy. He's not really a top choice, but I know we've talked about the coordinator situation that he's worked with. And to me, that would be a benefit if they pick McCarthy, even though he's not one of my top choices. But I think with some of the coordinators, like I like Kubiak too. I think he could be a great option. My big thing with the coordinators is I'm just worried about the transition from that to head coach. Just because it hasn't worked before for the Giants doesn't mean it never will. But I think when you've got a quarterback on a rookie deal, you've got to take advantage of it as quickly as you possibly can. And I'm just a little worried that there's a lot that comes with going from the coordinator to the head coach position. And I'm just a little worried about how the first year or two could go. And then you're in year 4 of Jackson Dart and the whole thing. So anyway, that's my concern. So I would prefer an experienced coach like, Harbaugh or Tomlin or potentially McCarthy. Not my favorite, but I would deal with it.
Anthony, who do you think? Who do you like? Who do you think they would lean towards?
I think they're going to lean towards somebody with experience. If Tomlin or Harbaugh is available, they're going to lean towards those guys because they've had success for 20 years almost, each of them. I think Tomlin's been employed by the Steelers, 19 years, and Harbaugh 18 by the Ravens. So it's basically 20 years. Yeah, and all they do is have winning seasons, essentially. The losing seasons, well, Tomlin's never had one, and the ones from Harbaugh are few and far between. So those are the guys that they're going to look for. The reason being, it elevates their floor. The Giants' floor is in the basement right now, and they're trying to get it out of there. So you hire an experienced head coach, and you're going to elevate that floor. But I don't think that Tomlin or Harbaugh are realistic. I really don't think that the Ravens or Steelers are going to do something that's stupid and move on from those great coaches, because I think they're smart enough to know the grass is not always greener. However, I do think the Cleveland Browns are going to move on from Kevin Stefanski. I think a lot of people forget Kevin Stefanski, 2-time NFL Coach of the Year. To be able to do that in Cleveland is quite the accomplishment, considering what an organization the Browns are. And the fact that he was able to go to the playoffs with them in 2020 and in 2023. I tweeted about Kevin Stefanski today, and somebody said to me in a response on my tweet, they said, has he made the Browns remotely relevant since he's been there? I was like, brother, yes. He went to the playoffs with the Browns twice. They went to the playoffs for the first time in 2 decades because of Kevin Stefanski. If Kevin Stefanski is available, he might be my favorite pick for the head coach. He's a really smart coach. He does know how to win. He does coach a great offense. Everybody likes to say, oh, but Jackson Dart doesn't fit in his offense. That's not true. He pounded the table for Jackson Dart. The Browns were trying to trade up for Jackson Dart. They went a different option because Stefanski has not been on the same page as the front office for the last 3 years with the quarterback position, but he wants a quarterback like Jackson Dart. He would jump at the chance to coach Jackson Dart. So, and the number one selling point for me with Stefanski, he hires great coordinators. Jim Schwartz is his defensive coordinator. Jim Schwartz is one of the best defensive minds in all of football. To me, when I look around the NFL, the formula to winning is to have an elite offensive mind who, as the head coach, who then has an elite experienced defensive coordinator. So like if you look around in the playoffs right now, the 12 teams that clinched, 8 of them are led by offensive minded head coaches. You've got teams, even the Panthers, that actually makes it 9 out of 13 now. And we'll see, with the last game being next week with, or this tonight's game, but the Seahawks are led by a defensive coach. And then you've got the Bears, an offensive coach with an elite defensive mind. The Eagles are an offensive coach, defensive mind is the elite defensive coordinator. Panthers, same story. 49ers, same story. Rams, same story. Packers, same story. Chargers, same story. Jaguars, same story. The only outliers, Broncos, same story. Only outliers being the Patriots, the Texans, and the Bills. Other than that, the entire playoff pool is offensive-minded head coaches who develop a franchise quarterback and then hire an elite defensive coordinator to just take over that side of the ball. That's what I want the New York Giants to do. So whether that's Stefanski running that show as he's done with Cleveland, whether that's McCarthy, he's done that before too, hiring great coordinators. He helps run the offensive side of the ball, oversee the whole thing, brings in Dan Quinn, an elite defensive coordinator, just run that side of the ball and forget about it, basically. That's what I want from the Giants' next head coach. Now, that's not me eliminating guys like Jesse Minter, I think is a fantastic candidate. I think that Chris Shula is an awesome candidate, maybe even my favorite, arguably, especially out of all the coordinators. But if the Giants can try and replicate what all these other teams are doing, then they should. They shouldn't look at Brian Dable's failure and then be completely scared at trying that process again. The process wasn't completely wrong. The problem was that after the elite defensive mind left the building for the Giants, they didn't readjust and bring another one in. And then it became a lame duck regime. That's where the Giants misstepped. But they had the formula right with an offensive-minded coach and an elite guy running the defensive side of the ball. So that's what I want to see the Giants do, preferably. That's the ideal world for me. So I like McCarthy. I like Stefanski. I like Clint Kubiak a lot, and I don't think enough Giants fans discuss him and the potential that he could bring to this team. So there are a lot of really great coordinators and coaches and candidates out there. I'm really hoping the Giants get the right one, but it's a long list. Like I said, I went through a bunch of names there, and I could have went over like 15 others probably who are going to be on the Giants list. So it's going to be a long process.
Let's just hope it's not a guy like Joe Brady. It's not that would be the Brian Dable mistake again, right? Because he's friends with him. He's in Buffalo. And that's something I kind of worry about too with Joe Schoen, is he just wants to hire his buddies and not hire the best candidate for the job. I want a guy with experience. And again, I think it's just because I need guys that can win at this level and know how to win at the level of a head coach. Again, you've seen it work on both sides. Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen have done great jobs with the Bears and Jags, and Mike Vrabel's done a great job with the Patriots. So there's no exact science to picking the head coach, but a head coach has to know how to delegate responsibility. And like you mentioned, Anthony, and we've all discussed how important these coordinators are. Whoever the head coach is has to get the coordinators right. And it's why I'm such a big advocate of McCarthy, because I do feel like he's picked really good coordinators. He's won 12, 13 games a bunch of times. He's won a Super Bowl. He's won a lot. He just knows how to win regular season games. And I say this all the time. Giants fans are like, oh, he doesn't win a Super Bowl. He's failed in the playoffs. So, that's fine. We're not close to sniffing a Super Bowl. You have to crawl before you can walk, and you have to walk before you can run. And when we're ready to run, if McCarthy or somebody else is preventing us from running, then you can look at a guy to get you to run. Right now, we got to learn how to get the hell up off our freaking knees, stand up and walk first, and then we can learn how to jog and run and all this other stuff. But right now, man, this Giants, they're not even crawling. They're just laying on their back. They're dead. So somebody has to rise us from the freaking dead first. We have to at least become a competitor and get into the playoffs and know what the hell it's like to win games that mean something now, as opposed to shit, we just screwed up our draft capital. Like that, we shouldn't be playing these games every year going, shit, we just messed up our draft pick. When the hell is it going to be? We beat Dallas, man. We had to go beat them to get in the playoffs, and we're going to the playoffs. When the hell is that? When does that happen? That's why I like the guys that have had experience. Hey, man, listen, if for whatever reason Harbaugh or Tomlin got fired, they're right to the top of my list. You give me either one of those guys, that's the guy that I want. But you mentioned a bunch of really good coordinators. It's a big thing. I don't know how many people the Giants going to interview. It's going to be a lot. You've also heard about James Franklin. You've heard a lot. You hear a lot about other tons of candidates. All we can hope for is the one that they pick is the right one, because I don't know what else to say. You're going to get a lot of good candidates in there, I'm sure. But let's hope that the Giants decide on the right one. And for me, again, maybe it's being cynical because we've been garbage for 10 years. I don't know that they're going to pick the right guy, because Joe Schoen didn't pick him right the first time. And Joe Schoen's picking this guy again. How the hell do we know he's going to do it right this time? The track record's not there. So I worry about that aspect of it, but all we can do is hope, man. We don't have control over it. We're just going to report on it and give you our opinions on it, and that's it. With that said, that brings us to the close of the first edition, or the first portion, I should say, of Giants Collective. If you're enjoying the show, do us a favor, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. It helps us out. This portion is brought to you by our friends at SeatGeek, who have, as always, a great promotion going. Let's hear from them. 80 seconds back after this with your questions. What's going on, guys and gals? You looking for a fun activity? You want to get out of the house? You need something to do? Are you looking for a great gift idea? Well, if so, look no farther than the sponsor of Giants Collective, which is SeatGeek. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There's more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. Giants season is underway. And say you want to check out Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders at MetLife Stadium? Well, it's easy. Just go to SeatGeek, scroll around, look for the tickets that you want, and SeatGeek's going to have your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dots. That's good. The red dots, well, it's not so good. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use the code Giants Collective for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with the promo code Giants Collective. Make sure you click that link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek, for sponsoring Giants Collective, and let's go Giants! Now we're gone. I tell you that much right now. We go. It's the end of the Giants season. The Q&A portion of Giants Collective brought to you by our friends at Sleeper. Check out Sleeper, guys, girls, the fast-growing app out there. You can play daily fantasy contests, college football, college basketball, NBA, and a lot more. You can also play over-under on props. 2 great promotions going by Sleeper. Click the link in the description. Enter the promo code HMA in your first deposit. Get a 100% match deposit bonus up to $100. If you don't have a Sleeper account, you want to try it out, especially for playoff football or when football's over, you want to do a little college basketball or whatever tickles your fancy. Just click the link in the description, open a brand new Sleeper account. That's all you got to do. They give you $20 to try it out. No deposit, no credit card, no debit card. Nothing is required. You just got to click that link, open a brand new Sleeper account, and get $20 to try it out. Terms and conditions apply. Have fun, win some cash, and test your sports knowledge at Sleeper. Christian, thank you, says not being insensitive, but the owner should sell the team, put someone else in charge that can make the best decisions for the team if he can't.
I don't even think he needs to sell the team. I mean, I agree in the sense that if you are battling cancer, I think the best thing to do for anyone is to make your health your number one priority. And I think that regardless of what type of job you have, that the job takes a backseat. That's your health is your number one, should always be your number one priority, regardless of anything. So the Giants as a whole have the means. They are valued at $10 billion. They brought in the Koch family to take over 10%. They absolutely have the means to have someone else make the football and the business decisions while John Mara focuses on his health. And I wish that the Giants would do that. It's frustrating to feel like that is being used as an excuse when, we've talked about this before. They're not a mom and pop cupcake shop. They have the means and they have the ability and they have the long-standing reputation of being one of, a franchise that's been around for 100 years. Like there's no reason why they shouldn't have other people making decisions while Mara focuses solely on his health. And as a fan, I feel frustrated that they are not doing that because, like I said, they absolutely have the means and the experience and the well-respected people in the building that we hear about day in and day out, that this is why Tim McDonnell has the job that he has. This is why Chris Mara has the job that he has. If you trust them and believe in them so much, and I'm including Steve Tisch in this, then why aren't they making those decisions, which is not good. I'm not saying that they should be making the decisions, but I'm saying that if you feel so strongly about the people that you've hired to run your organization, then you should feel like they are competent enough to do that while you focus, on your health until you're ready to take back over.
Anthony?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting to look at other teams around the league that have less going on in their ownership group that are still recognizing that the ownership group needs to take a step back. What I'm referring to is the Miami Dolphins. I'm sure you guys have seen this, and I kind of want to tailspin this question into that question. What are your guys' thoughts on Troy Aikman taking over to find the GM for the Dolphins? I find that very interesting. It's kind of what we've been calling for from the Giants, is to bring in an outside voice, an expert opinion. Whether that's Aikman, I don't know if that's necessarily the right guy. I don't know if that's the direction I would go, but somebody, some expert opinion that you deem you bring in to be a VP or just to run the search for a new GM, just to reevaluate the organization. Because the way it feels to me is that the Giants forever have just ran things with an internal evaluation. They've never really gone to an external eye to look at what's going on inside the building and evaluate it. Somebody like an Ozzie Newsome, for example, if the Giants wanted to outsource to him, he helped build what the Baltimore Ravens are now, and he is the architect of the way that they run things and yada, yada. If you brought in someone like that to just step in and say, evaluate our organization. You have no ties to it. You are an objective third party. Tell us where we're going right. Tell us where we're going wrong. Tell us what we need to do to get back on track. That's what the New York Giants should do. That's what the Miami Dolphins are doing, and I can appreciate that. We'll see if it works out for them. It doesn't always. I think the Browns have done this before, and the Browns are still the Browns, so it doesn't. And I think even the Jets have done this recently, and it didn't work for them. So, they hired, I think it was the 33rd team to be an outside party to run the GM search for them, and then they still messed up, I think, on the head coaching search. So whatever. It doesn't always work. but it at least signals to the fan base that you're putting in an effort to try something new and get it right. And especially when ownership is dealing with personal illness and potentially just turmoil. I mean, not even potentially turmoil in their life. I think that it would have been nice for them to signal to the fans like, hey, we are putting all of our resources into this. We're bringing in an outside voice to speak inside this organization and reevaluate it. That's what I wish the Giants would do. And I've been calling for this for years now. So it's almost frustrating to see the Dolphins do it. Meanwhile, the Giants, when more than ever they should be doing that right now, are choosing not to.
Yeah.
That was my first thought when I saw that report. I was like, oh, if only the Giants would do this. I wonder if this report will motivate them.
Yeah, I mean, it makes all the sense in the world, especially with the situation that the New York Giants are in. And we've all been saying that they should bring in a vice president of operations, which, to John's point, I agree. I don't think John Mara needs to sell the team. I don't think he's a bad owner or anything. Like, he's running the Giants into the ground, but he shouldn't be making these football decisions. And when Anthony mentions bringing in a third party, that's absolutely what the Giants need to do. You need to have somebody that has no emotional ties. When you're emotionally tied to something, you're never going to really be able to look at it objectively. Like, I use this as an example. Okay, if you're in a bad relationship with somebody, you might not even notice it's bad. But your friends outside your relationship go, yo, that's not the guy for you, or that's not the girl for you, man. She's not the right one. But you don't see it because, well, I love this organization. That's John Mara, in my opinion. I love this organization. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I think it's okay. We're doing well here. We're doing well here. Bring in somebody that can look at this thing for what it is. Go, this is ass over here. What are you doing with this? This is bad. We got to change this. This is good. We like this. We're going to build on this. We're going to use this. This is terrible. We got to change this. This doesn't work. These are all your problems. So let's make a concerted effort to go out there and fix these problems and build on the strengths that we have in this organization. Because again, if you're just looking at it from John Mara's perspective and you haven't changed things, the game, every sport evolves. The way things are done evolve. We're not evolving. The Giants continue to run things like they're 1986. And it ain't, as much as I wish it was still 1986, it's a good year. It's not 1986 anymore. So the Giants have to step up and get more modern. And again, this is the perfect time. And if you want to say perfect excuse to bring in somebody in here to handle the day-to-day football operations, to go on the GM search, to do help in the head coaching search, to do all the internal things that need to be done on a football basis while John Mara just kind of oversees and signs the check and runs the business that is the New York Giants, that would be the best thing for them. That doesn't mean they're going to do it because the Giants don't ever seem to want to do what's best for them. But I think John Mara loves the Giants. He's not trying to sabotage them. He loves them to death. We know that. He hates that they're this bad. But unfortunately, John Mara don't want to fix it. And it's one thing to sit there and go, oh, it's 2026, man. I'm going to lose 80 pounds. Well, I can sit here and scream, I'm going to do all that. But are you actually going to go do it? But John Mara can say, I don't want this team to be bad. I want it to be better. You know, we got to do better than this. If you're talking to me next year, we'll look at this. Sure. You can talk about wanting to be better, but what are you actually doing to make yourself better? Do something different. Like Anthony said, it might not work. We might hire the wrong person again. This guy might suck, but at least you did something different because it's working. What you're doing right now certainly isn't working. And the only way to change shit is by changing shit. So if that makes any sense, change it up. Ninoski. Thank you, buddy. What are your thoughts on the report of Charlie Weiss Jr.?
I found this really interesting and kind of exciting, but also unrealistic. So if you're not familiar with the report, Charlie Weiss Jr. was the offensive coordinator for Ole Miss when Jackson Dart was there. And now there's rumor that I think Jordan Rannon of ESPN, he posted that he heard Weiss's name come up in connection with the Giants as somebody that they might hire on to their next staff. You know, regardless of who the head coach is, they might just look to bring in Weiss to be a common denominator voice for Jackson Dart and just reunite with him and coach him since they have a really good chemistry. In theory, that sounds phenomenal. But in practice, is it even possible? I don't know. Charlie Weiss is going to LSU with Lane Kiffin. You know, so they would have to pry him away from Kiffin. They'd have to pry him away from LSU, where he's already committed to coach, in order to get him on their staff as something probably other than an offensive coordinator. He'd maybe be an assistant or a quarterback's coach or a passing game coordinator, but the likelihood of him jumping and making the lateral move, but to the NFL just to reunite with Jackson Dart, under a new regime with probably a lame duck GM doesn't sound entirely realistic to me. So I love the idea. I would love to have Charlie Weis team back up with Jackson Dart. If you go and you do some research and you read about the things that Jackson Dart has said about Charlie Weis, it's clear that they're very close. It's clear that they have a level of trust and chemistry that would really benefit Jackson Dart in his development. But more important than an assistant coach hiring is a head coach hiring. So that's what I'm more focused on. And again, I don't even know how realistic it is for Charlie Weis Jr. to be pried off of the LSU staff. I mean, come on. He's the offensive coordinator at LSU. That's got to be one of the most coveted jobs possible in college football. LSU always has explosive playmakers to play with. He is going to love to coach that team as their OC. So I don't really think it's realistic he would jump to the Giants to be an assistant on their staff. But nevertheless, you can never say never. So, and again, I love the idea of teaming him back up with Dart.
Yeah, I think, it always happens like this where names get thrown out and it's like, how realistic are they? I'm with Anthony that I think the reality of him leaving LSU to come here, the thing that I saw too said like maybe a quarterback coach or just an assistant. And like, you're not, no matter how much you love Jackson Dart, you're not leaving, like Anthony said, SEC, LSU with Lane Kiffin to leave there as an offensive coordinator and come to the NFL as a quarterback coach. So I think that's pretty unrealistic. I think it would be great. I think him and Dart reuniting would be great. I think Dart would love it. I think everyone would love it. I just think, like Anthony said, it's probably pretty unrealistic that ends up happening.
Yeah, I think it'd be difficult to make that move when you're going for a surefire thing to a not so sure thing, because again, if you have a lame duck GM and, again, this just isn't the head coach. You're talking coordinators, other coaches who same thing. I'm offensive coordinator at LSU. Well, let me make this jump to the Giants. Hey, Jackson Dart had a good year, but the Giants were 5-12 and Joe Schoen's gone and now you're gone. So then what happens to you? Because you're not going to sit there and go, well, we'll hold this offensive coordinator spot at LSU just in case you go to the Giants and it fails and you get fired. We'll open that back up. It doesn't work that way. So he'd have to go out in another coaching search or whatever. It's, again, some of these names are going to come in here. A lot of them are going to be unrealistic. I think he's one of them. Just like I think Tomlin and Harbaugh are unrealistic, as great as that would be for us. I just don't think they're realistic candidates. But you never say never. We'll see. I mean, the Giants got a lot of shit to do. Like I said, man, our regular season's over, but now the real season begins for us on Giants Collective and as Giants fans, because while a lot of teams are going home and some are going to go on and play in the playoffs, all of a sudden, all of our stuff for next year is beginning. Our preseason starts tomorrow. So we'll see what the Giants do, but we're gonna have a lot of stuff to talk about. The next time we do this show, which is probably Tuesday, I think we'll be talking about Mike Kafka being fired, I'm sure. And I'm sure at that point we'll have some idea maybe of who they're going to bring in for candidates. We'll see if Joe Schoen, I can't see Joe Schoen getting fired, but maybe he gets fired and who the hell knows. But we'll have a lot to discuss. There's a lot of things that are going to change one way or the other here with the Giants. Christian, thank you again. He says, when does Joe, got to be tomorrow, right? If he's not fired?
Should be sometime this week, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So this week, though, for sure.
I understand your question, and it's not good enough. Not your question, just the
that
effort.
Press conference alone was so weird that I'm like, I cannot believe that after everything that happened this year, that press conference on top of it, along with everything that he's done over the last 4 years, like, oh, bring him back. Great. I can't wait to watch this press conference. I'm sure it's going to be fascinating and so enlightening. It's going to say the same shit over and over again.
Again, I understand your question, Jordan. It's not good enough. I have to take a look at myself in the mirror, and the players got to do a better job, and I got to do a better job of evaluating talent, getting the right coaches in here. And, I get it, but, 2-13 is, 4-13 is not good enough. We did win those 2 games at the end of the year. So that's positive going forward. Jackson Dart's played well. We got a lot of talent here. It's not good enough. Obviously, I got to do a better job. But I understand your question and we'll go forward from there. Okay. I did this press conference. Now I can be the GM too. What the hell? And no, I could. Andrew, thank you, buddy. He says, do you guys think the reason Joe Schoen struggled to find good assistant coaches because the word was nobody wanted to work with Dable? What do you say? It's actually a pretty good question.
Definitely played a part in it. And you know, the head coach does a lot of the assistant coach hirings as well. So you have to give a lot of the blame to Brian Dable. Brian Dable puts together a list of guys that he wants. Obviously, Joe Schoen helps him hire those guys. But if you're talking about assistants on his staff, obviously Shane hired some of them, Charlie Bullen being one of them. And credit to Charlie Bullen. He's made this defense look a lot better over the last couple of weeks than Shane Bowen ever did. So, you can give credit to Shane for that hiring. But then other hirings were purely Brian Dable hirings. So it's kind of hard to determine those things. And I do give a lot of blame to Dable, especially considering I don't think a lot of people wanted to work with him. I think that was really evident after Wink Martindale left town. The list of candidates that they had for defensive coordinator just sucked. I remember when we were going through that list and Shane Bowen was emerging as a top candidate and a favorite for it. That was after the Giants already had, I think, 3 guys turn down the job because they didn't want to work with Brian Dable. And those 3 guys that turned down the job weren't even like super highly coveted names anyway. So I think that has been a problem for the Giants. And again, hopefully the next head coach that they bring in has really good connections and relationships and everybody's eager to work with him, which is why I do kind of look fondly at a McCarthy or one of these more established guys, because guys love to work for McCarthy and some of these other established head coaches because they have proven success in the regular season and they help guys get head coaching jobs. Like so many coordinators have become head coaches under McCarthy, Harbaugh, Tomlin, if he shakes free, so I think it played a big part in it, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, the Raiders are beating the Chiefs 6-3. I mean, of course, right?
Yeah. So helpful.
But I really think Andy Reid should be fired. I'm not being honest. He did a terrible job in Kansas City. But yeah, I think the way Wink Martindale kind of left the Giants and it became public that he and Brian Dable didn't get along. Then obviously it's gonna cut a lot of your candidates down because people are gonna look at that from the outside, no matter what happens. But it gets out there in public and go, well, I don't want the guy freaking yelling at me. I don't want the guy throwing me under the bus. I don't want the guy blaming me all the time or telling me I'm inept at my job. I don't want that shit. I don't want to go to that work environment. I'll go somewhere else where I hear better rapport with the head coach and his coordinators. So yeah, that probably did take away a lot of it. And again, when you're a bad head coach and you're a bad team, again, the odds of you making it through a year when you've had bad years, who the hell wants to become your coordinator? Like shit, if we're bad and the head coach gets fired, I'm fired too. I'm not going to make it out of this. So you're obviously not going to get as many candidates, which is why I think Joe Schoen should be relieved. I think you should just start over with everybody. But it's also why I want an established guy that has good, rapport with his coordinators and a good reputation of being easy to work with. And that's why I like a guy like Mike McCarthy or Mike Tomlin, professional guys that have coached in the NFL for a long time and have won a lot of football games. It's just something. I mean, you want to talk about culture wins and culture this and culture that. The best thing to do is bring in a guy that understands what winning culture is and what winning football games are and actually how to do that for 60 minutes and not 56. But yeah, I think that Brian Dable's attitude, seeing him fire the freaking tablet at Daniel Jones and a lot of other things that he did that kind of painted him in a bad light on national television. If everybody else in America is seeing that, what do you think the word is around the NFL? Well, don't go over there. What a difference it was from 2022 when guys like Rob Gronkowski are like, I'd come out of retirement to play for Brian Dable, to where he ended up being. It's amazing how fast things change in the NFL. And
I also think that's one of the reasons why they kept Bowen, because they knew the optics were going to look bad. I think they probably knew that they maybe had 1 or 2 years, like they really had to try and turn it around this year, and a new defensive coordinator. I don't know. Maybe they felt like wasn't going to do it. I think the optics of firing 2 DCs in 3 years is also not good. I think that was a big part of it. And also, I don't know if you guys have seen that clip. The last time when Dable was the coach and the Giants played the Bills, when the game was over, Dable and McDermott, not on good terms. The way that they completely avoid each other, turn their backs on each other. Like, I don't know if we'll ever get the full story there, but obviously something went wrong over there too. So, if that goes back to the Bills where he had issues back there with other coaches or whatever it was. Sounds like obviously looks like him and McDermott obviously had an issue. I just don't think he has a great reputation, right? If everyone loved him, why didn't he get hired anywhere else yet? I don't know. There's been some rumblings, but nothing yet, which is interesting.
I think some people are meant to be coordinators. I think Daboll's meant to be a coordinator. I just don't think there's a difference between being a coordinator and being in charge of coordinators. So I just don't know that Brian Daboll can do it. Maybe he can. And I liked Brian Daboll for years, but I just realized, this year I'm like, no, he's just not it. I liked him. I thought Brian Daboll was good. I gave him every opportunity, but we just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And Bowen did not help matters. I still don't know how the hell they fired Daboll before Bowen. I still don't. Again, it's why this organization is asked backwards. Why wouldn't you fire the coordinator that fucking blew the game before you fired your head coach? I don't get it. I'm not saying Daboll should have stayed on here all year, but I mean, I'd have rather gotten rid of Bowen and kept Daboll for nothing else for Jackson Dart than let's get rid of Daboll because the defense can't hold on to a 2-3 touchdown lead in the fourth quarter. Like, I didn't understand that. I've never seen that where a head coach went before a coordinator like that, unless the coordinator became the new GM, or I'm sorry, new head coach like Kafka did. But if you're going to fire your coordinator, I don't know why the hell it wasn't done first. Kafka came in and said, "You're out of here. You ain't holding me back. Shit, I'm going to pick Bullen." And you see Bullen, although he wasn't great, way better than Bowen, without question. So
that's on Daboll though. Like Daboll was loyal to Bowen, I think, because of embarrassment. He didn't want to get rid of another defensive coordinator. But Daboll kind of just laid down on his own sword there, being loyal to Bowen. He should have fired Bowen after probably week 6, or maybe that's when they won. But when was the Denver game? I think that was week 7.
Yeah, that's right.
After that, that's when he should have fired Bowen. We all went in the season saying the only way this Giants team on defense isn't good is if Shane Bowen can't maximize the talent. We all knew that. That was the problem. That was the only problem really in front of the New York Giants. Brian Daboll got to watch that problem, failed to manage that problem, and then that problem destroyed him. And that's on him. So I can't blame Shane for that one. That's on Daboll. Daboll got himself fired because he refused to fire Bowen. And I honestly think had he fired Bowen and Charlie Bowen became the DC, things might have turned around a little bit. The Giants probably do win a few more games. And maybe we are talking about going one last time with Shane and Daboll tied together. That's totally possible. True. So I really think that Daboll did that one to himself. But now I also want to ask you guys this, because I thought this was a really interesting report. I think this came from NBC today. Daboll potentially being the OC for the Raiders because Tom Brady greatly admires him from his time with him in New England. And Brady's trying to get Brian Flores, the guy who almost the Giants hired, to be the head coach. So it would be Brady running the show with Brian Flores as the head coach and Brian Daboll as the offensive coordinator. That's the rumor that was put out today by NBC. Does that not sound like almost a dream coaching staff? We all say Daboll, not a head coach, would be a great OC. Somebody's going to like him as their OC. We wish he could be our OC with Dart, but he can't. I mean, Brian Flores and Brian Daboll is awesome. So I guess it's one man's trash and another man's treasure, and I'm curious to see if that does work out for the Raiders.
Well, he'll get to work with Fernando Mendoza. Unless the Raiders win this game, by the way, and because the Jets are going to lose. The Jets are getting mollywopped because
I think the Raiders are locked into number 1 regardless. So
are they? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess that makes. I guess the Giants are the only one that could pass them then.
Yep.
Okay, so they're going to try to beat the Chiefs. The Jets have decided they're going to get number 2. Regardless, they're down 21-0, but it'll be interesting. I mean, I feel like the Raiders, though. I feel like they're one of those teams too, like the Jets, where you feel like everything looks right on paper, and then it happens, and it's like it's a total disaster. But it'd be a hell of a combination. I got no ill will towards Daboll. I like Daboll. He wasn't not a good head coach. It's just what it is. Way back, we'll just do this real quick. Again, this portion of Giants Collective brought to you by our friends at Sleeper. Let's hear from them 30 seconds back after this for the rest of your questions.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using the code HMA. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
That's right. Don't forget on top of that, if you don't have a Sleeper account and you want to try it out, just click the link in the description, open a brand new Sleeper account, and give you $20 for free just for opening a Sleeper account using our link. Terms and conditions apply. Have fun. Win your cash. Sleeper. Larry Legend, thank you for gifting 10 memberships, buddy. Really appreciate that. Larry is a legend. And, of course, with us every week as the Giants suck every week. Kevin, thank you, buddy. What GMs are available? Do you want to start again with some other teams' assistant GM? Remember, Shane was a hot assistant GM when we hired him. Yep, I do, because I don't want a lame duck GM running our team in 2026.
The GM candidate that I like is Ian Cunningham. He's with the Chicago Bears. He's working under Poles on the Bears right now, but he's worked under Howie Roseman and Ozzie Newsome. He's been in front offices for a long time. He's been NFL exec for almost 20 years, and working under Ozzie Newsome and Howie Roseman. I mean, you can't learn from two better GMs than that. So going from there to then helping architect the transformation of the Chicago Bears overnight, that's the guy that I would be most interested in. If I'm getting anybody in for an interview as a GM, it would be the guy who's worked with those guys and who's helped this Chicago Bears turnaround.
Be interesting. I don't think we're going to get the chance.
Same.
Yeah. I also think we'll find out more tomorrow, depending on who ends up getting fired, stuff like that. I know we've talked about Ray Agnew and John McKay before. Those are two of my favorite assistant GMs. Agnew's with the Lions and McKay is with the Rams. So those teams have done well in their drafts over the last few years. So I think those guys have good experience. But like Bad Dog said, might not matter. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
We'll see what happens tomorrow. And with that said, that brings us to a close of another edition of Giants Collective in the season finale. Thank the Lord above. The Giants do win their last two games of the year. They finish 4-13. They'll be picking at worst 6 in the draft, depending on how these games shake out here the next couple of hours. So enjoy the rest of your Sunday, everybody, and enjoy that Ravens-Steelers game. That's going to be a really good one without question. And whoever loses, maybe that coach becomes available, and then we talk about that. But we'll have a lot more to talk about on Tuesday because obviously the Giants are going to make some moves, and maybe we get some head coach and candidates' names in there, and we'll see you then. So for all John and Anthony, it's the Bad Day Dizzle. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody. We out. Peace.